So I'll get talking and then Joan can catch up as she comes along. Now Sue's disappeared. So I've just got an empty block where Sue is. Sue is back with her notepad and pen. So we will get started. I'm just going to put my notebook away. And let's get going. So week 2 of our, and I'm not quite sure what to call this mini series. Oh, I can see that Lynette's got her handyman adjusting her parasol. She knows how to live, doesn't she? So I'm going to be using a turntable today. So I think, as Sue said in the group, that I probably, in fact, I know I bought it for my kid because there's a label on the back that says IKEA. So when I had my work garage converted to make a little workshop, I had envisaged that I was going to have people come to my house to take classes, but it's never quite worked out like that. And I bought these turntables, and they would be really useful for people coming around. And to be honest, I've never used them, and I hardly ever take them to my adult ed classes because it's just something else to put in my bag. And it's not that it's particularly heavy, it's just that when I'm taking loads of stuff to class, I can't be you know, faffed taking something else with me. But they are really handy if you're getting into your flower arranging. They are handy because it means you can look at your arrangement from all directions as you go around. And I sometimes use these for their intended purpose, which we know them as the Lazy Susan. So, you know, put it on the table with your condiments on there, or sometimes just use it as a tray and have it sitting on the edge. So what I have done, I have got, this is the before, and I will show you the after. I'm just going to get rid of that mouse. And you'll have to let me know in the comments whether you like this or not. That is what I have made. So it's a welcome sign. And I've had that propped up in my front room on the side where I quite often take my photographs with some books and things. So I could also use it as conventionally on a flat surface. So if you were having friends around for, you know, an imaginary barbecue, you could come around and use it as a surface for putting your flowers on. So you could use it either as a tray. I can't tip that too far forward because the flowers will fall off, or you could have it propped up. Now originally I thought I could hang that on my door, but the problem with that is that it's quite chunky with the turntable bit just there, and it just seemed like too much for faff to take this off, and then there's some workings inside, and if you put the hook in there it won't sit straight. But that is effectively how it sits in my room, at a jaunty angle like that. So as a sort of wall plaque stroke serving platter. So I hope that you like that. I was quite pleased with the way it worked out. So I will talk you through how I did the base treatment, but in terms of the flower arranging, it is this sort of garland spray that you will be interested in from the pure flower arranging point of view. So what I did, can you see as well that I've attached the spray so it doesn't move? It's got a tiny bit of movement, but I've got a secret way of attaching that. So it did move slightly, but it didn't actually fall off, so that was good. So what I started off by doing was I sanded the board down, and then I used the technique, and remember I've shown it to you before, of taking my acrylic paint and splodged a bit onto the surface, smoothed it on, and then wiped it off again. So you can't tell probably from the quality of the picture here, but my finished one has just got a slight sort of lime wash effect to it. And I've then got, where I got my welcome piece down here, what I then did was put masking tape on here, and I then got my spray paint out, and that's what I did to get that bold bit of white. So it's got a whitewashed look here, and then you can see the bolder strip going down there, and that was actually done with spray paint. So I masking tape here, masking tape there, but I did shield the rest of it with newspaper so I could go outside and I could be quite liberal with my spraying. knowing it wasn't going to spill anywhere. And then I've used my Cricut to do the welcome little bit. And because I had the lettering in black across here, it was the only black thing on my on the sign, and so I've actually ended up trimming around the edge in black as well. So it's kind of going back to that farmhouse feel we had the previous weeks. That's just finishes it off a little bit. There's a bit of visual connection between. Oh, hello Julia, nice to see you here. A bit of visual connection between the black of the edge and the black of the writing. And the way I did that one was I got some black acrylic paint, squirt it onto my saucer. I won't show you exactly here. Dabbed it on and then sort of dabbed it off because you don't want the paint to be overly wet. And then I went round the edge, dabbing the paint on. And then that's when the turntable came into its own, because I was able to go through and sort of spin round and do it. I just put one coat on the edge, but as I was working on it, I was sort of working from the top edge, and I did eventually kneel down because I'd missed a bit under here, so just for completeness. So it was sort of 1.5 coats of black going round on the edge, which gave me the finished look. So it's that black and white detail, and then adding in, adding in that spray at the edge there. So the spray is done with silk flowers. And again, I have, do you remember that hat I showed you when we did the first one, the no flowers, no worries? And I took apart some flowers on a Easter bonnet I've made and attached stalks back to them. I've done exactly the same thing here. That took the flowers off my hat, and then I glued a floristry wire in and then taped over it using the buttonhole tape. So if you want to know more about that, I'll have to refer you back to the other video. So you must let me know if you want me to flag that video up for you. And then because I haven't got anything, I mean, I thought this one suited silk flowers anyway, because it's like a permanent piece of decor, as all the YouTubers call it. And my green was actually, I've taken apart a green garland. So anything that you have that's silk flower-ish, it's all made up of component parts and you can rip it apart. So my daughter actually for her birthday got a green garland that she wanted to hang in her room, but it was the wrong kind of garland. So I bought her what she wanted and she gave me what she had. And I have then gone through and I have literally, the garland looked nice and chunky. And I've just gone through and I've ripped the pieces off, and I can see that the garland is actually made with a rope base covered with a papery tape, and then it's got these sections of eucalyptus, and it's got 3 different kinds. It's got, it just happens to have 3 different kinds. I had some pointed eucalyptus, some more rounded ones, and ones that had more oval shaped leaves. So when I came to make the little spray, it's a double-ended spray, so it's got it's a little crescent shape. And what I started doing was thinking about how I was going to make that. So I thought I wanted it to taper off. So I've used my fingers of eucalyptus here so it can taper off. And I've made sure I've got the same quantity of each. So I've got 1 each of those. And then I've got my oval-shaped leaves. And that's for the other bundle there. And then I've got my rounded leaves as well. And I can put those together in my hand. And that's the papery binding that was on there. And if I stagger them down a bit, I can then start to join them together. So I'm just creating this flourish of greenery. And then with my buttonhole tape, I bind them all together. So if you didn't have buttonhole tape, it may be that you might have some sort of duct tape in your toolbox. You just need something that's going to attach them all together. And if you don't know how to use that tape, let me see best, you stretch it out and then you twist your materials into it. Stretch it out. You see it's going a bit translucent there. And then you roll the materials out. So I'm circling my materials into my tape. I'm not wrapping my tape around my materials. So I pinch it off there, pull it out at about 45 degrees. It's gone a tiny bit thinner, and then I rotate it in. So that would be 1/2 of my spray. And then I do the same with the other half. So with my pointed bits, my slightly bigger bits, and then my rounded bits, lay them all together. and do the same thing again. So I'll do this one a bit faster. You can rewind the video and have a look afterwards and see what I was doing there. Down like that. I'm then going, I've ended up with 2 matched pieces. Well, not totally matched, but they've got the same components in them. I'm going to get rid of these long stems because they're getting in my way. So I'm just trimming them down a little bit. And I take the 2 ends and I slide them together. And I'm going to tie them off. How best to show you that. Oops. Just one on top of the other. And then I'm going to bind it with my tape again. So I have made this totally in green because I haven't got any more silk flowers. So when you come to do yours, you will want to, in your hand, and because they're all on a bit of wire, I can shape them around a bit, and you'll need to make sure that you haven't made it so big it's not going to fit on your board. Something like that. And if you like, you know, a rule, I would say that probably the little spray here is about 1/3 of the circumference all the way around. So it's 1/3 flower and 2/3 space if you are into a rule. And then with my flowers, when I made it originally, I did exactly the same thing. So I lay out my greenery, and then as I went in, I also decided how many flowers I've got. If you see here, I haven't got that many flowers because I didn't have many. But the biggest flower, there's a rose in there and a poppy in there. So they were my 2 biggest. And then I went out to the ranunculus and then some rosebuds as well. So it's the same as when you would be traditionally arranging flowers. You want to create a focal area. So my biggest flowers are right in the middle. And then my materials got smaller and smaller as I went out to the edge. And if you've got your flowers that are all the same size, you know, perhaps you've got lots of gerbera, or silk flowers, or you've got lots of roses, but they're all the same size. You just need to space them out evenly. But if you can detect any difference in size, always go for the biggest bits in the middle and the smaller bits going to the outside edge. So what I've ended up there, you know, it's quite an effective little mini wreath. You can almost imagine hanging that on the wall and perhaps having a ribbon on it, so you could, you know, just make half the project and make yourself a little indoor mini garland. But it is rather unsightly in the middle where you come and join it up. When you come and make yours for real, you can properly knit it together, but you're still going to have a part where you've seen that it's fixing together. I don't know if you can hear that, my husband's washing his hands. So I then added a big bow in the middle of mine. So it's quite a good way of filling up something when you haven't got a flower. Use a ribbon to sort of create bulk and interest and movement as well. So I don't know how good you are with your ribbon bow making, but the way to do it is I don't tie a conventional bow, I make loops in advance. And I realise now that I've got a white background with a white ribbon, but it needs must. Good morning, Jane, lovely to see you here. So what I'm doing is to fill up that big gap in the middle, you need to imagine I've got the flowers in here. I'm going to create a big bow in here and leave myself quite generous tails so I can weave the ribbon through it as well. And that'll help disguise the fact that I don't have many flowers to add in. So ribbon making, like everything, takes a bit of practice. And what I am going to do before I start, I'm going to take a floristry wire to tie my ribbon together. I need to keep that safe. And then I always unwind my ribbon. It's going to clatter onto the floor now. I wouldn't cut your ribbon off because you never quite know how much ribbon you need. So I will talk you through the process. You need to leave yourself the tail that you want and pinch the ribbon. And this is going to be your middle point of the ribbon where all the bows stem out from. So I take the ribbon and I make an upwards loop, and you decide how big you want your loops to be. And then I always twist my ribbon, and you will need to twist your ribbon. If you've got a ribbon that's got a print on one side, you need to twist it every time, because otherwise, I've got a fan club behind Lynette's hand there, and then come back up again. So I have created 2 loops, one going up, one going down, and it's created a figure of 8. So the next time I do a loop, I'm going to make a loop here and then do one diagonally down here. So the same thing, pull the ribbon out into a loop, twist it round in the middle, and then I'm pulling it off this time to this side. So I've now got 4 bits of ribbon. So my first one went straight up, my second one went straight down, third one off to one side, fourth one over there, and you can see where the 5th one needs to go, and you can see where the 6th one needs to go because there's a gap. So try and make the ribbon the same size, scrunching it up into the middle, and then coming down and going back. So it's just one loop at the top, one loop at the bottom, and then offsetting it each time you do it. And then coming back there. So I'm having long tails, and I can cut my ribbon off because I now know that my ribbon has been made. And you could undo the ribbon to find out how much you used. Every time you make it, you'll find your tails are a bit longer or shorter, and your loops are a bit longer and shorter. So at the moment, this ribbon is just being held apart. This bow is being held in my fingers. If I let go, the whole lot is just going to ping apart. So that is what my floristry wire is for. And I realise you probably can't see this so well. I'm laying the floristry wire across the middle and then bringing it to the back, and then I'm twisting the wires together. And the way I do my twist is I start off by crossing the wires and then spin round. You can either twist the wires round or hold the wires still and twist the ribbon round, whatever you find easiest. So you need to make sure you do this really firmly, because otherwise when you pull your ribbon apart and you start sort of dressing the bows back up again, it will fall out of your fixing. So everything needs, waggle it and see that it holds straight. Once that's been fixed, you don't need this bit anymore, so you can cut that out and then bend that wire out of the way so you don't need it. So you can imagine that that would sit quite nicely in the middle, covering up the fact of where your join was. And because this is a wire-edged ribbon, I can wend it round, and you'll add in your other flowers and it will really start to fill out. But the problem then is, how are you going to attach the ribbon to the little garland and the garland to the sign? And as you saw, I could be, oh, it slipped. It does stay. I'm being a bit mean with it. It is staying. It's only because I've been throwing it around, but it's not been staying so much. So what I've done there, do you remember when we made the tin cans, when we did the farmhouse tin cans, and I was saying you couldn't get the little metal hooks to sit on the metal hooks, and I used a tiny bit of felt? Well, that's what I'm going to do here. I've cut myself a square of felt, and if I fold that in half and do 2 little snips, I've gone about 1 centimetre in and left 1 centimetre. If I separate that out, can you see? It looks a bit like a buckle. I'm hoping that your imagination is coming with me. I then take another piece of ribbon, scrunch it up, because I'm going to sew that through the buckle, like so. And then I hot glued this bit of felt onto the board. Now the thing with hot glue is it will hold, but it's a little bit brittle. So as you could see, I've been lifting it up and down, it's actually fallen off a bit. But that doesn't bother me, because it means you can peel the hot glue off and you can use the board for something else, or you can switch things around a bit. So if you wanted this to be a permanent fix, number one, either don't chuck it around like I was chucking it around, or you'll need to find one of these Gorilla Glues or super glues that hold really firmly. So I'm going to ask you to suspend your belief for a moment. Imagine I have hot glued that down like that. And then what I do is I take my garland and imagine it's got my flowers in. If you've got flowers, biggest in the middle and then getting smaller and smaller, I lay that over the top there, and I'm then going to lay my ribbon over the top, the bow. So I know I've got 3 loops on one side and 3 on the other. I can crush the bow so I can get on with what I want to do, because I know I can dress up the ribbon finish again because it's got on a wire edge. But I'm making a sandwich there. So I have got the felt with the buckle with the ribbon through it. I've layered on top the garland. I've layered on top my beautiful bow. And then with these two bits that are glued down, I tie them in a knot. And that is what is fixing everything together. So I will tie that in a knot. I'm going to go for 2 knots. And that has fixed everything together. So I can go back in with this wire-edged ribbon. Apologies, it is white, but I will send you some photographs so you can see up front what I'm doing. And this is the beauty of the wire ribbon. You can make it in your hand. It can be crushed, but because it's got the wire edged on it, you can sort of reshape it and get the volume back in again. So we do like to have a bit of a side profile on things. So you can see again, it's got this mounded high profile on the top, and then all peters out to the end. So it's not only getting smaller in terms of the leaf size and the flower size, but it's the height as well that's getting lower. So you've got all those lovely ticks. If you want to get your flower arranging points, you are flower arranging there. And then what I did next was you can sort of concertina the ribbon up, get some shape to it. I cut the ends with the dovetail just to neaten it off and stop it fraying. You can do that, or you can do a slant if you want. And then I thread it all the way through, which is a bit difficult to do when it's not all glued up. So what I'm going to do then is show you the finished one, so you can start to bring that all back in your mind. Actually, it is still stuck. I thought it had slipped a little bit, but it is still stuck. So there, I was talking about the profile. You can see that that is the highest point. You can see my bow. So my bow isn't really obvious. I've set it down. It's the part of the mechanics, the fixings of what I've done. And depending on how much you like ribbon and bows, you can either do it quite discreetly. I mean, you could just do the buckle bit and tie it on and not have all these trails. And then you can see here that that is the end of the ribbon there. So it has snaked its way around. I've got another tail of ribbon there. So I've ended up with 4 tails of ribbon, another one over there. And that is how I put it together. And it will depend on how many flowers you've got. So I was very limited. I'm not a huge silk flower fan, so I haven't got a huge stock of them. But to show you that you can make something pretty to use as a welcome sign propped up, or to use it as, you know, almost if you're having, you know, a little welcome back to the world party, you could have that on a table as almost like a welcome table on a coffee table with your jam jars of flowers, which we have talked about before. So that is a whistle-stop go through of what we're going to be doing for today's project. And then it's the technique really. So that's the back side of it. So you can see the buckle there that I've made out of felt. That's the ribbon I thread through, and that is what has tied it all together. Now this look, I'm using a sort of glossy wedding-ish ribbon, but I think for these projects, you know, a lovely check ribbon would look really nice. I've tried purposely to go for flowers that are colours I haven't used before, so sort of embracing the season and going with the yellows for the onset of summer. And you know, you could almost, you know, make a hat as well. So I am going to take you off mute for the moment, and if you want to we can go back to the questions.